Hello everyone. So many of you have been asking me for a lighting and shading tutorial, and I'm finally here to deliver. This should be a fairly easy and simple tutorial to follow. But if you have ANY questions by the end of the video, feel free to comment them. So first off, separate all your layers into basic flat colors. It's way easier to render when all of your layers are separated. That way the shading and lighting isn't blending. Your best friends when shading are going to be multiply, color burn, and overlay. Each of these will give you a completely different style, but if used correctly can look beautiful together. Throughout the video you will mainly see me using multiply, because it's just the easiest to manage. Here I'm starting off with hair. I collect the flat base color of the hair and set the layer to multiply. I'm starting off with small shadows, so anywhere the hair curls, or creases or layers on top of one another I will add a shadow. Similar to how you see shadows in the folds on your clothing. Try to keep your shading to these shapes and curves. Triangles look best when shading for my style. You may see some people shade with rectangles, and while it works, it doesn't fit my rendering style. Next I'm taking another layer of multiply that I will later change to overlay and adding one larger shadow. This really helps define the layering in the shadows and create depth between the lighting. Finally, I'm moving on to the lighting. Characters in darker color palettes like this, I keep the lighting very subtle, just adding small strokes and mini circles. For final touches I take one final multiply layer and an airbrush tool and shade around the edges for more depth in my character. To make Ibis Paint easier to follow, try grouping your layers into folders. That way you don't delete or move the layers without realizing. Next we're moving on to the skin. Now here there isn't much to render, but in my opinion skin is fairly simple. Also, please note that what I did for the hair is basically what I do for everything else. So once you get the hang on it, this video will seem repetitive. Take the base color of the skin and right where all the hair folds over the face, make a shadow underneath. For my persona I draw shadows underneath and above the eyes, but this is highly relevant to your character's design and isn't necessary to achieve my style. You can genuinely never go wrong with adding small darker shadows. I feel like they always add SM to a drawing. For the lighting, especially if you have a lighter complexion character, keep it minimal, it's already going a long way. But same technique as the hair. This last part goes really quickly, but basically, I take an airbrush with a pink and overlay and airbrush the shadows. Then I take another color and create a dark shadow overhead. This shadow is only to help with perspective and not something I do on every piece. With clothes you'll never guess, but I do the exact same thing. Except now we're going to be starting with bigger shadows. So I'm going to really speed this video up now and just explain more tips. I like to give clothes bigger shadows because I feel like they just look cooler. However, one major thing to remember to which way your character is facing. Just like the shadow in the face. Since my character is looking down, the lower we shade on my character, the darker my character is getting. This is because I chose for my light source to come from overhead, which I probably should have given a visual of. Grab a background that fits the light source and shadows, if you want to have it, and use it as your guide. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes I add shadows just because I think it would look good, and not because I think it follows any rules. Art isn't meant to be a rule book to follow, so just make it feel alive. Unless your character is dead, I guess. If you're trying to add lighting to any black clothing or hair or anything, it can get difficult, but for my style it actually just follows the same rule. Take the color you started with, and set a layer to add. This is where your triangle practice comes in handy. Make light-colored triangles where the most light will hit. It's okay if they overlap shadows as well. For black clothing, subtle light is going to look gray. But once you grasp the bigger picture, it will look right. I promise. Finally, I'm taking my ride or die multiply layer, an airbrush and a dark red tint to give the black clothing color while also darkening it. This gives it a lifting look without everything being one color. Now I don't want to be any more repetitive, so while you watch the process on these final bit of rendering, I'll add some of my more opinionated tips. Some people will tell you to never shade with black. And to be honest, I never really do shade with black. I shade with multiply, which can look black, but technically isn't. With that being said though, I have used black to shade, and on certain pieces it looks right. Then it looks really well. However, black is a painfully easy way to make your artwork look blended together. Personally, my favorite colors for shading are pink, purple, blue, and red. And I like to use bright versions of these colors on a multiply layer, especially because it creates a more contrasting light. It does give off contrasting colors. Now with lighting, some may say not to use pure white. And again, it all matters on your style. Black along with white is a crucial color in your palette, and can make a great light source. However, again, I would not just use white. I would expand. For lighting I use very warm colors. Orange, yellow, and pink are my go-to colors. Your art will gain so much more confidence, contrast, and depth with more color. You can create so much emotion in beautiful environments. You can make a piece have real feeling to it.